Bethesda stealth released The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remaster earlier this week, and it immediately drew the ire of many gamers, including myself, because it removed the male and female gender options that the original game had, instead replacing it with body type and types 1 and 2. I'm going to be joined by novelist Isaac Young. He is the author of The Domes of Calrathi, which you can actually see right here over my shoulder. Highly recommend the novel, one of the best I've read in a very long time. We're going to be discussing why Bethesda decided to make this change, but we're also going to be talking about the obsession that we see throughout our culture of doing remasters and remakes of games that aren't even really 20 years old in many cases. And this isn't just in video games, right? We see this in movies and even television as well. The Walt Disney Company obviously infamously does this with their animated to live action remakes. We're seeing Universal do this this year with How to Train Your Dragon, etc. We have a big show planned for you today, and I'm happy to be joined by Isaac Young. Welcome to the Trent Report. How are you doing, sir?
Pretty good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to finally have you on the show. I know I've been following you for quite some time. I obviously am reading your books now, and we publish some of your articles and syndicate them over on Phantom Pulse as well. And I think you have really good analysis and insight. So it's great to finally have you on the channel.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so let's just get to the topic at hand here. Obviously, been covering this quite a bit here on the channel, but Bethesda released Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remaster, and players quickly found that they have body type in the character creator, and it is type 1 and type 2. And that is a change from when they had gender and then male and female. So I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on this, and specifically because we have people like this guy, Doc Brown, kind of came to my attention here. He says, I don't understand this. It isn't like it is going to change dialogue in the game. Characters aren't going to refer to someone as the type 2 Argonian over there. So why change it in the create a character?
Well, I mean, you kind of first have to understand the left is a religion and not a and they're not this is a mistake that conservatives make quite often, is they're not doing this for the money. And so they'll make extremely unpopular decisions with their properties. And they've essentially, burned every IP in the mainstream media to the ground, essentially, just to basically get one over on regular people. And it's essentially what these types of things are: humiliation rituals, where they'll force down blatantly political jargon for their side into basically everything. And this is just another manifestation of that.
Do you so you believe that that they're not doing this for the monetary purposes? Because I think I even fell into this trap when I've been covering this kind of stuff for almost a decade now, and I thought, well, obviously they are trying to do this from a profit incentive. They've got studies from, I forget what the big company was that was saying, like, if you do all of this DEI stuff, it will lead to profits and things like this, and that's how they were justifying it in many cases. We quickly saw that was not the case, as we saw almost time and time again that anything that really kind of went really, really hard with the woke ideology clearly did terrible at the box office. We saw last year anything that Sweet Baby Inc. was attached to was rejected, failed, layoffs, etc. But we also have seen some bigger properties that do have a lot of this stuff, and they do well. Baldur's Gate 3, I think, being the biggest example, and maybe the exception to the rule. But we've also seen games, and I know this is one that you're a fan of, you've played, is Elden Ring, where they do have the body type stuff. We saw this also more recently with the, and I guess is almost pertinent to the topic at hand too, right? Is the Dragon, I think it was Dragon Quest 3, the HD 2D remake, etc., where they had that, and even you had the creator of Dragon Quest like questioning why this was even being made before, and like all the kinds of like things, him shutting down and stuff like that. So you think that the profit incentive was just kind of cover?
Well, I mean, just look at the people who are currently in these studios right now. I mean, all the old guard of all these beloved video game studios, stuff at BioWare. You mentioned Veilguard, Bethesda, Blizzard. Um, all the old guard are essentially, been kicked out. And you take a look at these photos of the staff, and they're all activists. And now we wonder why all this stuff is suddenly appearing in the games.
Right. So you think that's what it is, because all of these people are kind of religious adherents. They're all the ones who work there now, and so thus they don't really care if the company goes under. The profits are terrible. They're going to keep going. And even now, I think the biggest thing that we see now is that almost all of these companies are controlled by a single company. So you have Microsoft that owns Bethesda, and it owns Activision, Blizzard, etc. And so, and there's other kind of sources of revenue that it has, where it can kind of offset maybe these losses that you see. And I think we see this with the Walt Disney Company, right? They can offset their theatrical losses with the theme parks and things like that, and the other parts of businesses that they have, and that they are trying to kind of push this agenda here.
Yeah, and we saw with U.S. aid where they were funding essentially a bunch of different projects that made them very insulated from actual consumer demands, where they could effectively, raise the middle finger to consumers without any real consequences of free market. And that's one reason why they were so willingly liberal to just inject their politics into pretty much everything.
What do you kind of make of the fact that this kind of ideology took over so quickly, or seemingly did, like it all kind of came to a head so quickly, where it reached a tipping point, and then it was just like a flood, like the dam almost burst. Like it had been obviously like slowly trickling through. We saw signs of it, if for especially people that have been observing for a while. Like we saw like Will and Grace in the 90s. I've been seeing episodes that I watch of Everybody Loves Raymond, where it's supposed to be like a Catholic family, and you've got the mom like talking about how you should be treating LGBTQ plus relationships and gay marriage and all of this stuff, and trying to normalize that. But then I don't know, I feel like maybe 5 to 10 years ago, like the dam burst. Is that because of all these old guard just kind of did exit and they were replaced by all of these activists? Or what do you kind of make of that?
Well, I mean, all right, so there's an entire volume of essays to be written about how the woke took over pretty much every aspect of our society. And we can only go into like a small fraction of a fraction of that process here today. But in terms of, how did the woke conquer all of the mainstream media? Well, essentially, they legislated their politics into law. I mean, basically what they did was they got every company in the country to have an HR department. And what HR departments do is they're essentially enforcement on basically woke morality, feminism, LGBTQ, all that sort of stuff. So they were very
like employee resource groups.
Yep. And what they do is they crowd out. There's a meme out there where it's the left tells conservatives, "Oh, you're not wanted here. Go make your own space." The conservatives make their own space. Left wants into that space. They infiltrate, and then they tell conservatives, they boot the conservatives out and tell them to make another space. And that's essentially what's happened across the video game industry. Is that they crowd out the old guard. The old guard no longer feels that they're welcome in those environments. They leave, and the left has suddenly are in control of these institutions, which have the reputation, the name, the clout of these once great developers who are producing games that people loved, and they use that to basically they hijack that for their own interests.
So I guess that leads us to a kind of that a broader conversation too, is that is this why we see kind of all of these remakes and remasters for games that likely probably don't even need remakes or remasters? I mean, we're seeing like Dead Space getting remade, and they just did a Silent Hill 2 remake. We obviously just got this Oblivion remaster. I think the game came out in 2006, so it's only been, hasn't even been 20 years yet, and we're getting these like kind of remakes and remasters already. Do you think we're seeing these remakes and remasters because the talent level isn't there, because of kind of these woke activists have taken over and they just don't have that talent level? We've heard this from Ubisoft, where they're talking about how the people that were making Assassin's Creed Shadows, it was all like their first game, that they, like, many of them were just their first game. What do you make of why we're seeing all of these remakes and remasters across all of different various mediums, like movies, television, video games, etc.?
Well, I mean, they're unable to produce anything new that's particularly good, and Bethesda itself has been stumbling from disaster to disaster since 2018, with the release of Fallout 76, which was an unmitigated catastrophe for their studio. And then after that, they followed it up with Starfield, which was supposed to be their redemption arc. There was that was supposed to be, at least the way they were trying to advertise it, is, you know, a No Man's Sky style. You know, we're back in the saddle, which immediately went to mediocre reception, which steadily got worse and worse and worse over time. And so they needed a freebie. And you know, a lot of these companies, especially in the games industry, you know, they prefer low risk projects. And the most low risk project you can do is to take a previously successful project, polish it up, make a few improvements here and there, and then send it out to the market and make a boatload of sales. And even before Fallout 76, what Bethesda was doing is just re-releasing Skyrim over and over and over again, on basically every single platform, including your toaster.
That's true. I think I bought it twice, for PS4 and PS5. But yeah, I think that is interesting. It's obviously not just kind of the remakes and reboots. We have seen even Blizzard kind of doing this, where they did WoW Classic. They brought that back as well. And obviously that was wildly commercially successful, especially some of these, the more beloved properties. They do seem to be pretty commercially viable. Oblivion is doing okay. I actually thought it would have done a lot better. I think it got up to like 190,000, so just a little bit double of what Dragon Age: The Veilguard was. And we know that game missed the mark by, EA said it missed the mark by like 50% or something like that. So I don't even think it's doing as good as what maybe I thought it would have done. I thought it would have done a lot better, given the fact that it is kind of this kind of beloved title. So do you think there's like a burnout, and people are recognizing that there is something missing from a lot of these remakes and remasters? Obviously they are injecting the woke ideology into a lot of them, but is there something else about them where they're like, is that players can discern that it doesn't have kind of like the heart of the originals?
Well, I mean, there's only so long, like, you can only tread water on these remakes and remasters for so long, and our culture has been doing that ever since 2016, really, where every single new release has been a sequel or a reboot of some kind. I would expect burnout to a certain degree. I mean, a lot of people in my sphere were hoping that people would kind of mass migrate from more traditional means of entertainment to more indie stuff. That's happened to a degree, nowhere near what we wanted. But there's only so much you can recycle before it just gets stale and boring. The real question is how long these companies can remain solvent for, now that they've been cut off from government funding, and now they have to be more abiding by free market principles. But I suspect we're still going to be in this for the next 5 to 10 years minimum.
What do you see as the antidote to kind of this cultural malaise, maybe, that you would describe it as? Obviously, we're kind of talking about how we got here, with the corporations being able to kind of move money around, obviously getting funding from taxpayers, etc. Maybe some money manipulation as well in there, but there's still kind of this missing ingredient, I guess, or is there an antidote to kind of this malaise? And I think obviously you are working to do that with the Domes of Calrathia. I thought it was, I mean, I can't praise the book enough. I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm seeing this from other people as well, too. I do think that we are seeing some inroads in Hollywood. I think Angel Studios is working to do that. I think their production values are pretty high. I think they can still improve on their storytelling and things like that. But we are kind of seeing some inroads, I feel like, are being made on that, and I'm almost seeing there's already kind of a response to that. I think Amazon MGM Studios' House of David is a little bit of a response to that. But what do you see as kind of is there like a silver bullet to kind of fix all of this?
Well, unfortunately, your silver bullet is either creating parallel institutions which exist outside of the malaise, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do. Me and many others can attest to this. It's extremely difficult to sort of operate outside these outside the left, because the left have basically again legislated a lot of their morality into law. And so they have very powerful weapons to go after anyone who gets too big. The second thing is institutional recapture, which again is also you have to be willing to basically go to war against the left activists, and that comes with its own problems. But those are the only two ways. I don't think there's any exit strategy for the right. And there's a lot of talk of trying integralism and kind of peaceably recapturing institutions, which I don't think is doable. I think whatever if we're to build anything, we're going to need to be able to exercise real power to protect those institutions from infiltration, and that requires actual power and not just playing by the left's rule book, because in the left's rule book, conservatives always lose.
Do you see, I mean, I obviously mentioned a couple things there where I think there is some change happening. Do you see that, or do you think I'm completely like off the mark?
I mean, I've seen the first steps of it. It's more along the lines of, can anything coalesce from what we've already done? And that's a very difficult question. It's sort of, there's this civil war and the online right spheres right now, is whether or not Donald Trump is an actual opposition to the left, or is he just a hack who is coasting off of really poor strategy. And there's a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions on this, and this goes right down from, you know, the president to all his staff to influencers online to just basic what even is the right wing in this country at the moment right now. The right wing's currently going through a bit of an identity crisis. And I can't really answer that question until I see something permanent. I mean, it's possible that something really permanent and sound comes out of this, but we're kind of in a very blurry transitionary period right now.
I wanted to go back. I'm going to totally change topics on you here. I wanted to go back to the body type stuff here. And you actually make some really good commentary about how fiction is literally meant to affect us, and kind of pushes back on a lot of arguments that you see online where, oh, it's just fiction. It's whatever. It doesn't really matter. Just get over it, etc. You see this a lot. Can you kind of talk about how you see fiction and how it does actually affect us, and it can affect our behaviors, our attitudes, our temperaments, etc.
Well, I mean, all right. So you take a look at this body slider, right? And I'm currently really burnt out and commenting on the woke, but I'll outline this for people who kind of don't quite get it yet. The point is to humiliate you into accepting the left's frame. And it's very interesting because I remember when the body type sliders were initially introduced, it was the male that was type 1 and the female that was type 2. And I think I see right here that the male is now type 2 and the female is type 1. So that should make it fairly obvious that even when they're on paper saying, oh, hey, we want to transition to this non-derogatory, non-bigoted, completely fair slider, immediately they attach power dynamics to the numbers 1 and 2, where 2 is lesser, even though that really doesn't make any sense. It's just a number. But they immediately attach those power dynamics, and what that does is it basically makes you operate within their frame, where you have to accept their frame to move forward. And they do this in pretty much all their entertainment. And then there's going to be people who are arguing, what's the big deal? Well, I was recently reading online that there was a mod introduced on a very popular forum that reverted the male-female slider to its original Oblivion state. And that mod was promptly taken down off the forums. It was censored. And that kind of tells you how important this is to the left. That it's not just live and let live. They automatically have to make sure that this is the only way you can interact with their art. You can't interact with it in non-approved ways.
Yeah, so just to be clear, they did take it down. This was reported on April 22nd. Nexus Mods took it down, but they have since reinstated it. But their mod that they have still, as you said, operates under this framing, right? They still keep the body type framing instead of describing it as either sex or gender.
I see the males on the right side.
Yeah. Well, that's because of
right
how
side's implicitly lesser.
I think that's probably just easier for the coding, I would assume, because that's how Bethesda did it, right? With the type 2 on the right.
It's hilarious to me because every single time they claim that they're evening out everything to make things fair, they immediately slip back into, oh, hey, all these little details, they're actually extremely complicated power maneuvers, extremely petty and small. But
yeah, what's interesting, I assume you didn't see this, but they give this whole explanation here on why it was removed, saying it was the mod was not taken down because of its content. As stated in the ban notice, it was removed due to the uploader's behavior. In the comments, the uploader expressed an intent to incite drama and endorse an external site explicitly designed to host inflammatory content. However, if you go to the actual reason why the uploader was banned, and the uploader was this guy 7H3 Laughing Man, it literally says non-permitted content. And if you click the link, it's literally the mod that is now available, and that's what was not. That was the problem. It wasn't his comments in their forum or whatever. So they just straight up lied on why he was banned too. So that goes to your point there, that they did ban it. But yeah, sorry. Can you further explain a little? Go back. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but you were talking about how fiction, and you're using Nexus mods as an example of this, because why if fiction didn't actually affect something, why would they basically ban this, right?
This goes on to a very long-standing argument of how people perceive reality online. The way there are basically 2 or 3 different interpretations. There's one interpretation where people are these hyper rational actors who will cut through any propaganda and eventually come at this consensus of truth. And that's kind of the basis of a lot of liberal principles, is that through consensus, the masses can come at not only truth, but the best solutions to political problems. And that's a
Yes,
very liberal way of thinking.
and libertarian
Where
too. That the market will decide kind of idea.
Whereas what we see more often in reality is that people are hyper susceptible to propaganda. And if I can control the frame in which you interact with fiction, and I can control the content of that fiction, I can actually manipulate quite a lot of your beliefs. And for evidence, you can just look at the after effects of the COVID lockdowns, because there are people in 2025 still masking and being hyper paranoid about the pandemic. Even today, it's mind-boggling to look at, but that is
I
the
think that
effect fiction has on people.
I think the biggest example, even outside of COVID, is the I thought the war propaganda we saw when Russia attacked Ukraine at the beginning was way eye opening to me, how effective war propaganda can be. Because I just remember, do you remember that Ghost of Kiev story? You remember that?
I remember this. What really threw my head for a spin was the X-wing fighter
What? I didn't even. There's an X. What
representing
is this?
Ukraine going against the Russia Star Destroyer.
Okay.
I was like, this is what we've reduced war to, is
Yeah.
Star Wars movie.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, that's what they wanted to do, right? That was the whole point of those sequel trilogies, I think, was for that. But with the Ghost of Kiev thing, like the propaganda was so strong, and when you didn't really know whether this person was, and there was like constant new updates to it, so it was clearly a narrative fictional piece of propaganda, because it was revealed that that person didn't even, the Ghost of Kiev never existed. There was no such thing as this Ukrainian fighter shooting down these Russian fighters and attacking like ground installations and things like that. And but there were so many people bought into that and thought that this guy was real. And I think that goes to your point that clearly fiction can be used to make people think things are real that aren't. And then if that's the case, then what else can it be used to make you think, right? Even when you like, so I guess that kind of begs the question, or this brings up the question that I have now, is like, even if there's things like Star Wars, which we know, I mean, for the most part, I think most of us know is fiction. So even if you recognize it as fiction, how does that then affect maybe still how you kind of view reality and affect your temperament and your ideas and everything?
I mean, even if you understand superficially that it's fiction, if I let's say I'm a movie producer, what I can do is I can code the characters, and this is what the left does, is it constantly subtly codes the characters, where certain races are always presented as good, certain races are always presented as evil. Certain archetypes are good, certain archetypes are bad. And even if you go to a movie thinking it's fiction, those can subtly influence your ways of thinking. I know that Disney, for even when it was making good movies, you have these really subtle messages. I remember one that was talked about a year or two back was The Little Mermaid. And you think that's a perfectly fine film, a perfectly enjoyable film. But there's still some subtle subversion in there. Whereas the father figure, Poseidon, he's presented as this buffoon character who doesn't really, he's restraining his daughter, he's being overprotective, he just needs to take a chill pill, right?
Yeah.
And you can watch that movie, you can sit in the movie and know it's fiction, and then but you take the ideas and those subtle messages, and let's say a girl watches that and she thinks, oh, my father's being overprotective, oh, my father needs to lay off me, I should be able to express myself in whatever way I want. And I'm not saying people go into these things and they're like greatly influenced. Like there's this equally there's this conservative archetype where video games cause violence, that as soon as you play GTA 5 you turn into a carjacker, robber, yada yada yada. And this is also a caricature. People don't immediately switch up their personalities based upon the media they consume, but these things have their influences, and if they didn't have their influences, then it makes no sense why the left would be so hyper focused on controlling media, or why they spent billions of dollars creating the greatest propaganda machine to ever exist, which is Hollywood.
So do you think that that might also be why they are doing these remakes and reboots, or whatever you want to call them, or remasters as well? Is that they want to like further that kind of messaging in even different ways? Do you think that's
it
kind of
also has to do with rewriting history. That's another thing they love to engage in, is where they'll take old things and update them with the new programming, and basically try to forget the old thing ever really existed.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like to cite all the time. The line from Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi: "Let the past die, kill it if you have to." That is their slogan. That's how they operate, and they operate like that in real life too. Like we saw during the Summer of Love, all the statues and everything that they were destroying, even if they happened to be like people you would think that they were that they wouldn't destroy, right? Like people who had like were abolitionists and things like this, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. They just wanted to destroy it because they saw it as some kind of vestige of tyranny over them. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me here on the Trent Report. I love your insight and analysis. I think we had a really good discussion here. Can't wait to have you back on the show. Hopefully, get you to talk. We'll probably definitely do an interview with you over on Phantom Pulse when you're ready to release. I think you have an upcoming audiobook that you're working on called The Last Human. You want to touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, so The Last Human, it's not an audiobook, it's an audio show. It's going to be available on my YouTube channel as various podcast platforms. I'm still looking into getting that uploaded. And basically the premise of the novel is exploring the last remnants of humanity existing in the far future, where the galaxy itself has become post-human. I'll leave it at that as a short teaser. You can find the trailer on my Twitter. Yep.
Excellent. All right. And I, as I said at the beginning, I highly recommend Isaac's The Domes of Calrathia. I'll include a link to the Amazon page where you can purchase that. It's really, really good. And I'm actually I'm anticipating the second novel. I wanted to continue reading. It's one of those things you don't want to put down. That's how good it was. So again, thank you though, Isaac, for joining us, and look forward to seeing you back here soon.
Yeah, thank you.